Hey everybody, welcome back to the Mike Miller Show. This week we have a special treat for you guys. Josh Denny is with us. He's a stand-up comedian / libertarian. And today we are going to talk a little bit about cancel culture and hopefully have some laughs along the way. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Oh,
Pretty
well,
good,
I don't
man.
know if you guys can hear the shit going on behind me, but I have it's like the first nice day of the year, and all of the kids across the street think they're fucking werewolves or something. It's chaos out there.
It's funny you say it's like the first nice day of the year. In California, we've had nothing but all amazing days. And I actually my building is across the street from like the athletic grounds of a middle school, which have been deathly silent for over a year. So it's pretty amazing. I can relate to what you're talking about because before the lockdown, if I was sleeping in, I would be quickly awakened by the sound of screaming children across from my place, and to not have that for the last 2 years has been pretty great.
Yeah, I'm pretty envious of you, honestly.
So are you out in LA then?
Yeah, I live in the Valley. I'm in Burbank, just outside of Hollywood.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
He's from Philly, though.
Yeah, you can tell by my new Philadelphia Eagles hat that I'm wearing right now.
That's what's up.
That's an Eagles logo?
It is now.
What the fuck have I done?
It is.
I thought that was like Dave Chappelle.
No, it's an Indianapolis Colts logo. One of my long-running things on Twitter has been how my fandom was also traded to the Colts along with Carson Wentz.
Oh, shit. But if it makes you feel any better, I'm a Texans fan right now, and that's just getting bad over there.
You don't even know which hat you get to buy yet.
No. I know which hat I already own, so that's the one I'm going to fucking own. I'm going to wear, but...
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question. So you're from Philadelphia?
Yeah, I grew up there. I was born in Delco, so I was born in Chester and raised in Ridley Park, and I lived on the East Coast until I was like 15. I bounced between Philly and Delaware, and then I moved to Minnesota when I was a sophomore in high school, and then I lived there for about 11 years, and then I moved to Los Angeles in 2009. I've been here ever since.
Well, did you indeed? Did you spend all your time on the playground, like other people from Philadelphia, being Will Smith?
No. That was a real backwards entry into a mid-level joke.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I could have structured that better, but like I was like trying to remember the fucking lyrics on the fly, and that just did not fly. But thank you for calling it a mid-level joke because that was not that good.
It was the most Caucasian thing I've seen all day, which says a lot because I spent a lot of time on the internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Pretty. Next thing you know, you're going to be offering people $500,000 to tell you where your dogs are.
Well, there is no amount of money that I wouldn't pay up for my dogs. But that being said, I don't know. $500,000.
That's the Lady Gaga thing, man.
Oh, I know, but like Cooper was free, so like $500,000. Fuck, I mean that's not a very good turnaround.
See, I don't understand this. This is why when people call me white and they say I have white privilege, these are the white things I don't necessarily relate to. Like when I was a kid, if our dog I had a friend not too long ago tell me that like his cat has cancer and he has to get chemotherapy, and I was like, that's interesting because when I was a kid, if one of your pets had cancer, the chemotherapy was a shovel in a bag and a hole in the ground, and then you get a fucking dog. That's how it works. So this whole idea of like, here's $500,000, bring my dogs back, no questions asked. I'll be like, I'll get you fucking 3 new dogs, brand new, and I'll keep the other $450,000, no questions asked.
So
I like where you're at with this.
I think there's a really interesting, I'm going to nerd it out for a minute here, but I think there's an interesting libertarian argument to the whole veterinary surgery thing, right?
Okay.
So if a dog's reconstructive knee surgery costs, let's say, $5,000, and a person's reconstructive knee surgery costs $40,000, is that not just the best fucking indictment of our current healthcare system ever? I just think that
it's an indictment of our entire culture altogether. First of all, the fact that you would pay $5,000 for a fucking dog's knee to be reconstructed is insanity. And that's why, by the way, you're looking at this the wrong way. You're thinking that the human market dictates the pet market. It's exactly the opposite. Excuse me. If a veterinarian is like, yo, I'm getting $5,000 for dog knees, then the actual doctors are like, well, fuck that noise. I should get 20 times that for a person.
No, here's what I think. I think that the market drives veterinary fucking practices, right? So the market is these rich cunts will pay a lot of fucking money to have their dog's fucking knee surgery done, right? And the market is also
what you're
is
saying,
not involved.
So what you're saying is
human healthcare thing.
What you're saying is the way we reduce the cost of human healthcare is to go with my plan, is that if we start taking more human beings out back, putting them in a bag, hitting it with a shovel and digging a hole, then the cost of healthcare will inevitably come down. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm pro COVID, bud.
That's such a good choice.
Taking out the weak, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Listen,
my boy
you can't walk it off. We're going to dig a hole. Enjoy that, Big Pharma.
Wow, this conversation's off to a great start.
I fucking love it.
Yeah. So let me ask you a couple of questions. So all I know about you is that you're a comedian and that you're libertarian. Are both of those things correct, firstly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, tell me a joke.
Whoa.
I'm just
what a cunty thing to say to a comedian.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, you're a comedian? Be funny. Yeah.
So do you like, are you like an anarcho-libertarian? Like, or are you like straight party libertarian? Like, libertarian means so many things.
I know. Well, first of all, to 90% of liberals, it means white supremacists. So from that perspective, I'm not that kind of libertarian at all. Despite what you may read, but no, I mean my philosophy, I would say the best way to describe it is I'm a constitutional libertarian, meaning that I believe in the freedoms and the liberties granted from the Constitution, and I believe in a government that's reflective of that. So when you talk about that, it's like maximum personal freedom, no policy or governance over anything beyond what the Bill of Rights grants American citizens, but absolutely protecting the things that are granted by American citizens. One of the by the Bill of Rights. One of the things I get pushback on all the time, being a very vocal pro-life person, is they go, "Well, that's not libertarian because you're forcing control over somebody else's personhood." And it's like, listen, the first lines in the Bill of Rights, in terms of what people's inalienable rights are, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you're preventing somebody the opportunity to live, then you're immediately throwing out their constitutionally granted rights, right? And you don't have the right to murder somebody for your convenience because they're inside your body, any more than you have the right to murder somebody for your convenience because they're in your living room. It doesn't work that way. Property doesn't work that way. We don't look at things like that.
What if they double park?
Yeah, then it's fine. Then I think we get the shovel in the bag and we start from that angle.
Brought that one back around. Very well played.
But yeah, so it's, to me it's like very cut and dry. It's like what are we I think we got it right in the first instance, right? And a lot of people go, well, there's a lot of problems with the Constitution, that's why we've had to amend it so many times. Well, it's interesting how the more and more we amend the Constitution, the more and more we create laws and things to try to improve our country, the less freedom we have. And I think, we live in a time where we have the least amount of personal freedom that we've had in the history of our country.
Agreed.
So
absolutely.
I think, all right, let me ask you a question. How do you think that changes? What's your idea for how that changes? Because I think it's pretty clear that we're fucking owned by an oligarchy in this country.
Yeah. Do you want the honest answer? Because the honest answer isn't a good answer. The only way that changes is war. It's the only way it's ever changed anywhere throughout the history of civilization. So, that's why I think it's so funny when you look at the January 6th stuff and everybody clutching their pearls and they're going, "Oh my God, it's an assault on our democracy and it's going to be the downfall of our civilization." Wait till a fucking general rolls through DC with tanks and says, "Nope, we're not doing this thing anymore." And that will be a real government coup, and that will be a real overthrow. And I think that's where we're headed, is militias attempting to overthrow our government, not a bunch of fucking QAnon dorks with flags and taking selfies. You're going to have guys with machine guns going, "Yeah, we're not going to have our constitutional rights removed anymore." And I think we're probably still 5 to 10 years away from that, but that's how it'll change.
That's pretty sobering.
I agree with you, right? In that I think, that's one way that it changes. I see two things, right? One is that Beverly Hills is in a defensible position, right? So eventually the rich will be overtaken. That just is, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being rich. I love being, I have money, more
You
money.
love being
than,
middle upper class, yes.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no, those digs behind you show how lavished in wealth you are.
you know what? That's my basement and a greenhouse. So
Yeah, he lives in a gated community.
Yeah, I've
He's one
never
of those assholes.
seen a guy squatting in a construction site talk about how well they're doing. But go on.
I'm loving this mic bash. This is fucking great.
all right, you know what?
Yeah,
Fair
I'm here
enough.
for it.
Fair enough. I've been
Of all
relegated
the
to the
of all the
basement.
people who should
my
have their
wife
background blurred, you don't.
You know what? I'm I like
Completely derailed.
showing
It's
off
So funny.
my proletariat environment. That's
Okay.
all I'm saying.
I got
I'm a member of the proletariat. I like everyone to know that.
Hey,
That's all I'm
the thing about immense wealth is that things are always under construction. I get it.
Yeah, typically.
Really, honestly-
That's Los Angeles. It's the wealthiest. They're talking about seceding because they have more money than most of the country, and yet we don't have a road that isn't done yet.
The honest answer is sadder than all the other answers, and that's that my podcast studio has been relegated to the basement that's unfinished.
No.
So that's the saddest
It
thing.
worked.
My wife.
No.
owns-
Let me correct you. The saddest thing was your fucking podcast setup used to be a piece of sheetrock sitting on 2 sawhorses.
Yeah.
Now you actually have a fucking desk, so you got that going for you.
Well, I don't have
Move
a
it-
desk. I have a plastic table.
that your wife steals
I
all
count.
the time.
So
Well,
anyway,
yeah.
all right.
Michael, get in the fucking craft room if you're going to talk to your friends. We have people over.
Yeah. Well played, sir.
Right.
Not bad.
Okay. So
You said, Mike, you saw it going 2 ways. What were those 2 ways, you dork?
okay. So 2 ways, right? Like I think that in this country you have a whole bunch of people, a class of elite people, I would say, that are taking advantage of the government system that we have and using that to advantage themselves. I think that's a reasonable premise, correct?
Yeah, based under the guise that fair elections can be won anymore, which I think we've learned that they can't.
Yeah,
And-
if
and
you
even
think that elections matter,
And
you're
even if you
just stupid.
squeak in like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, they'll just remove all of your power.
Agreed.
So, this is not it's not a system designed for democracy at all. I mean, the funny thing is the left spent the last 4 years calling Trump a fascist, and everything they're doing now in control of both chambers of Congress and the presidency is entirely fascist. They've removed, because they didn't like her rhetoric, they removed her assignments to her different what's the fucking word I'm looking for? The different sort of congressional responsibilities she was supposed to have. Committees, that's the word I'm looking for. They removed her from her committee involvement, which is ultimately how everyone in Washington gets things done. That's where they have their influence. That's where they have their power. It has nothing to do with the constituents they represent. It has everything to do with the committees they're a part of and the policy they get to influence by being a part of those committees. And so that Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, like her or not, was a direct shot across the bow to let all of these disruptive potential candidates for the next 4 years know that you might get elected, but you won't do shit unless you're one of us. And so she's not an Ivy League, and they're doing the exact same thing to the woman from Colorado, Lauren Boebert. Yeah. So, you know, we like to think that there's this idea of, you know, a way. I mean, and quite frankly, it's this simple. Without another 9/11, without an Ozymandias principle giant squid falling on New York and killing everybody and uniting us against the common enemy, the next war we fight will be in this country over the ideology of, does the Constitution matter, or are we throwing it away?
Well,
first, all right.
Go ahead, bud.
Two things there. One, I see the second option for me that isn't war is a devolution of federal power, which I think is reasonable.
How do we get to that, though?
I think the way that we get to that is through the internet. I think the internet is helpful. I think there's a reason why elitists and government officials are attacking the internet right now.
But they're winning that. They're winning that fight wholeheartedly.
Well, you know, I'm still on the air. You're still talking.
Yes, but
how long? That's not guaranteed, because
right, exactly, and
they're silencing all of us.
And anybody who gets any significant following, like I'm still on Twitter until I get to 500,000 followers or 1 million followers. At some point, when they realize that you're having influence, they will take. I mean, look at Alex Jones. I mean, the minute out, and I'm friends with a lot of these guys who got shut down. Another one's Gavin McInnes. Like, they literally they created a narrative that a man who has a wife who's Native American and has mixed race children is the new Hitler and the leader of a white supremacist drinking club. It's
I can't agree
insane.
with you more, right? But have you been to war? Have you been to like a third world country that's like?
Yeah, I live in Los Angeles. Did you miss that part?
Well played. Well played. But like, I mean, seriously, have you been in a place in your life where where the average citizen felt threatened for their life on a real level?
No.
Well, and to me, I think that's maybe the difference between. I think maybe that's what veterans can bring to this table when we're talking, is that war is not the answer you're looking for, bud.
Mm-mm.
You don't want that.
I don't think anybody wants it. You asked me what was necessary for us to change it. And listen, nobody throughout the history of war has wanted war other than those who have wanted change. And unfortunately, that is the only way throughout history that major things have changed, is through war and dominance. So, you know, it's generally the way we get things done as a country, right? If we don't like what somebody's doing, we throw some fucking bombs over there. We send drones in. And we beat people into submission. Why would our government treat its own citizens with any more brevity or respect than that?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I can't agree with that more. That the government is completely capable of doing that to its own citizens.
The government exists to serve itself. The government, I mean, you know, I put a thing on Twitter the other day, and I don't know if Casey saw this, but you know, there's two paths ultimately that would have to happen in Congress to start to shift this thing the way you're talking about, right? Number one is term limits, which no one will ever get elected to enforce or change, because the people who'd have to vote for it are the ones who are directly going to lose from it. So that will never happen without some sort of dictatorship in this country or military takeover. But the other thing is the idea that, and this is what I don't think people know. Do you have any idea how much money congressmen and women make in their first year? It's $170,000 a year base salary. Okay. That doesn't include all of their expenses that are covered by the government, their rent stipends or things like that for having their tax credits for having dual residencies for the purposes of doing their congressional duties. It's $170,000 a year. That's 2.5 times the average median income in New York and Los Angeles. It's 5 times the average median income of of the average person in 40 other states, right? So these people, by nature of the way the job is, the way that it's positioned, and the amount of money you make immediately, that you don't even have to perform well. It's not even like you have to get reelected. You don't have to do anything. You can literally get elected, get the job, and make 5 times what you were probably making in your state at your desk job or whatever before you got elected. And then you wonder why these people don't ever want to leave office. They want to tie up legislation. They don't want to move anything around. It's because the system benefits them. And government in this country is designed to enrich people smart enough to become a part of it. It's not designed to reward those who advance our culture, our civilization, or our economics forward.
Yeah.
That's very well said.
Well, you're fucking preaching to the choir.
You want to fix the problem. I mean, why would a congressman or woman make more than the average income of their constituents? Number one, if you change the salary to that, where you make the average amount of money of the people that you represent, boy, would shit change really fucking quickly, right? You would not be able to stop the amount of opportunity zones, the amount of small business investment, the amount of things that Congress would actually be doing to advance the livelihoods and the happiness of their constituents than if their success was directly tied to the success of the people they represent. But it doesn't work that way. You literally walk in and you make 5 times the amount of money of the people you represent, and you don't have to do a fucking thing. You don't have to accomplish anything. It is the antithesis of what the American dream is built on: hard work, productivity, and creating something for yourself. The way our government functions is completely away from the premise of America. So the only way we can fix it and get back to the premise of America is to overthrow this system of government. It's the only way.
Let me ask you a question then. How did it get this bad? Like, if you're saying that the only way to commit to radical change is through violence, where was the violence that made it that established an oligarchy, that established an elite? Because I don't see it. I see it as years and years of work towards a goal, which is what they have now, which is complete authority and control over a citizenry.
Well, here's a good question. Here's a good comparison. Why didn't knowing how many slaves lived on a plantation, why didn't they just murder their masters and take it over?
Well, did it take a violent revolution? And mind you, I don't think the Civil War counts here because slavery didn't end there. Did it take a violent revolution to end slavery?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think it took...
What was the Civil War?
All right, the Civil War, right? It ended slavery in a bill, right? The Emancipation Proclamation ended slavery technically.
Yeah.
Right? But slavery continued for generations after that.
Yeah.
You know? So to me, I don't think that it was a war that ended slavery. I think it was the culture that ended slavery.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, how does it continue for 22 years if everybody was culturally on board with it?
Well, the thing is that a lot of people were culturally on board with it, and a lot of people weren't. One of the people that wasn't was Frederick Douglass. And if you listen to Frederick Douglass, who's a fascinating guy, you know, he's talking about, he makes an argument for how the founding fathers and the leaders of the church are against this, are against slavery. And he does a hearts and minds campaign on the people, and the people stop being about slavery. It's fascinating. Man.
But what's interesting to me, though, is a lot of the propaganda that was pushed, and I say propaganda because of the intent, not because of the outcome, because the outcome was that we got rid of slavery, and I think everybody agrees that's probably one of the most important things we've done as a nation since we became a nation, right? Culturally, philosophically, from a humanity perspective, it's probably the best thing we've ever changed about our culture since we became a country. And I don't know that any other country has ever made a course correction in the way they were headed more than America did in that moment. However, the sad part about it is that it wasn't necessarily a moral motivator for why we ended slavery. A big part of the abolitionist movement were British nationalists attempting to force America back into debt with the Bank of England. So our slave labor force was the only way we really had an independent economy, the only way that we sort of found a way to make money and to make our country prosperous. And a lot of British nationalists in the North who ran the media, much like they do today, right, thought, listen, if we can raise the moral question of slavery and completely destroy our industry in this country, or our labor force, or the ability for them to be profitable, make money, and run their businesses and their industries the way that they do, then it would inevitably force us back into debt with the Bank of England. And whether we're an independent nation or not, if Britain holds our debt, we might as well just be the colonies again. And so when you look at that and you go, well, you know, we didn't necessarily need violent war, violent government overthrow. I mean, the abolitionist movement had its own political agenda in addition to the moral one of removing slavery. And we don't know, because none of us lived in that time, what the ultimate prevailing logic was in getting that pushed through. But for all we know, Lincoln could have been a guy who was at heart a British nationalist, who wanted to enforce or force us back into a more of a Commonwealth relationship with the United Kingdom. And a lot of the people that ran the press that was abolitionist, you can go back and research this, but a lot of the papers and things that ran abolitionist stories and articles and a lot of the sort of anti-slavery stuff that came out in the news back then, they all had ties to Great Britain. They all had economic and political ties, and they would have benefited by putting America back into debt with the Bank of England. So as much as from that point forward, you have to understand that generally, if our government is saying that they want to do the right thing, you always have to ask, cui bono, who benefits? Where do they make money off of this? And the second you find that out, the whole fucking thing is rotted from the head down, and the only way we'll ever fix it is to remove the head.
God damn it. I hate arguing with you because I really like you and I agree with all of these positions.
You know, and this is the thing that people don't understand. It's like, and this is why even having these discussions or researching these things as a white guy in America, you get labeled as a racist, but we can't ignore the fact that there were black slave owners, plantation owners, who not only gave most of their money to the Confederacy, but made their sons fight for the Confederacy. When we ignore things like that, we ignore that there was potentially more nuance to that whole situation than any of us today looking back could understand, right?
Can I give you a better argument than you just gave me regarding white privilege, which is what I think we're talking about here? Right? If I make a whole bunch of jokes about Meghan Markle right now, right, I'm going to be called a racist. Right? Because she's half black. She's a goddamn princess.
Yeah. Well, I've made this comment on
fucking privilege.
I've made this comment on Twitter every time. I mean, this is why the left is so fucking retarded, for lack of a better word, right? On one hand, they will spend all day on Twitter calling every black man king and every black woman queen, and then they will say that jokes have to punch up. Well, if everyone is royalty, how am I punching down? This is the thing. This is what we talk about, the bigotry of low expectations from liberals. Inherently, liberals believe that any joke about a person of color is racist because they inherently believe that every person of color is beneath them. And so anyone making jokes about a black person or a Latino person or a gay person is punching down because innately they believe that they're superior to those people. I make fun of everybody because I view myself as equal to everyone. So if I don't make jokes about a group of people, it would only be because I feel superior to them, right? And I would have some sort of guilt about that. I don't, and I don't. So I make jokes about everyone. But that's an interesting point when you talk about why would making a joke about Meghan Markle be punching down in any capacity? The only way you would think that is because of her race. She is royalty.
Well, the only way that you would think that, right, is because you've been indoctrinated into a religion that says, I agree with you, that black people are lesser than.
Right.
And I agree. until we start viewing Americans as
Someone's
American,
going to isolate that
full
clip
stop.
of you saying black people are lesser than. I agree. They're going to cut
Yeah,
out all the context. And you're gonna get canceled, my friend.
Well, good luck. You can't cancel
They're
what
gonna
isn't.
they're gonna disassemble that mansion behind you, particle board by particle board.
Not exactly famous, my friend. So, but that's the thing, man. That's the religion. The religion is one of convincing people that they are better and another group is worse. And in reality, if we had any kind of fucking sense, we would just see all Americans as American and equally important, and that would benefit everyone.
This is why I brought up slavery earlier, not to go off on that tangent, but it kind of goes back to when you said, how did this sort of liberal thing, how did this government gain this power without violence? It's sort of the reason I brought up the Civil War was related to what Kanye West said on TMZ that got him in trouble, which he said 400 years of slavery sounds like a choice. And what he meant was, in his weird Kanye way, was at some point it continued because you convinced them that they were slaves. They believed it in their minds and hearts that was their role in society. And if at any moment a number of the people enslaved in that moment had rejected it violently, it would have ended way sooner. I mean, these people in these plantations were outnumbered, 100 to 1, 200 to 1? I mean, in the smallest cases, 50 to 1. So,
and they were fucking handling farm equipment.
Yeah, I mean, literally
that shit
bred for the purposes of doing hard labor, right? So you literally created war machines that could probably have ripped you limb from fucking limb, and you're literally doing like biological, eugenics through breeding. And so, I don't disagree with him, and the sentiment of what he was saying was part of these atrocities are the victims starting to accept their place in society. And so, our government didn't come to power by violently taking over the populace. They convinced us that they rule and we follow. And that is the song and dance of America. And people are refusing to believe that more and more and more as as it becomes more blatant.
All right, wait, right here. Let's pause, because I think you just made a really fucking interesting point, right? And that's that authoritarianism is all of the fucking establishments are going away. The Catholic Church isn't important anymore because they fuck babies. High school teachers aren't fucking important anymore, aren't on a pedestal anymore because they fuck babies and they don't teach. I mean, every fucking part of society that had any kind of fucking authority at all is gone. It's just gone. There's no authority. There's no fucking rules.
Well, and there also is
violence.
And when you combine that with a lack of bravery, like name me an actually brave person we've recognized outside of government that we have, bestowed some sort of cultural prestige upon. It's yeah, but I'm talking about since then, right? Since a guy like Martin Luther King or even Malcolm X, I mean, name me a person in society who has done something unpopular and been called heroic.
Pee Wee Herman. Just a thought.
I mean, that's cool, but and to be fair, like not recently, but like Harvey Milk. Harvey Milk is a heroic character. I mean, he fits into the liberal narrative.
How long ago was that?
You're right. That was like the 90s.
I mean, 30 to 40 years ago, we're talking. So in the last, let's just say since 9/11, name me a person who has gone against our government who's been labeled a folk hero or heroic.
Edward Snowden is a fucking hero.
There you go. There's one.
Not to the government.
There's one.
Right?
And by the way, forced from his home, living in exile, an enemy of the state.
Yeah, he is an enemy of the state. That's why he's a fucking hero.
But my point is he's not he's not succeeding in America.
He's
Yeah,
culturally embraced.
Right,
Joe
but
Rogan's had him on twice.
But there's not. My point is that there's not a way for that person to affect anything without jeopardizing their safety.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's safer in Russia than he is in the United States.
Yeah, what
he's
does
an
that tell
American.
you? What does that tell you about the
That
way
tells
that
you
we
everything
view?
you need to know, though.
Exactly. That just proves
you
my
know
point. It's that our government will not
Exactly.
allow
And also,
anyone.
if
Go
I
ahead.
may, not only does that prove your point, Josh, but again, my issue is we kind of allowed this to happen because we didn't want to step up and be the Snowdens or someone with a voice that would say, here's my belief, here's why, and here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm fighting to protect. So since 9/11, we should have seen the patriotism in this country rise up because we know what we can lose, but I don't think ever factored in how fast that was going to be and just how vehement they were going to be. And even the most basic of our rights, our unalienable rights, which we're seeing trampled every day. A lot of this is our fault.
Yeah,
We
need to have
the
that
idea of
conversation.
patriotism changed.
You don't need to look any further than what happened to me in May of 2018 when I said, I did the tweet, straight white males become the new N-word, which is sort of a hyperbolic way of saying, isn't it interesting how openly accepted it is to be racist towards straight white men? And not only like, it's not only accepted, but in a lot of ways rewarded. It's that you get social capital for doing it, right? And so I call this point out. I get crucified on Twitter. I get called racist. I go on Van Lathan's podcast on TMZ and defend free speech and defend people's right to individuality, meaning what does the color of my skin have to do with my upbringing, my story, my relationship with people of color, all of those things. Like, why should I have to contort my individuality to this socially cookie cutter accepted way of being a white person, and get crucified for this? I got at least 24 messages from very prominent people in Hollywood, whether they be producers, actors, comedians, all agreeing with me. Why didn't they do it publicly? Because it's just easier to live with the boot on your neck than it is to get shot for standing up. And nobody wants to stand up. So you ask how this happens. It happens because America's been comfortable enough for us to be weak fucking people for 100 years.
Agreed.
Well,
Since World War II, we really haven't had hard times in America. And it's like the Joe Rogan quote, soft times make soft men. And that's where we are. We don't have people standing up and fighting back because it's the government has made, this is the going back to the slavery thing. You almost at a point make it too fucking comfortable to live with the boot on your neck. And so they go, let's just give them enough. That's what a $1,400 fucking stimulus check is. It's enough to get you not to get in your truck and shoot somebody on your government capital. It's enough to keep you at home, barely fucking getting by, so that they can go, look, we did something. And you go, well, technically, I guess they did something, so I'll continue to eat shit sandwiches. But if they starved you, you would fight back. So it's exactly what England did for hundreds of years of rule. It's giving you just enough not to retaliate. And that's what America has become. We get just enough not to overthrow the government.
Yeah.
I think you're right, but I also think that the government is scared. And I think the elite are scared.
You think? They know that they deserve what I'm talking about. They know that they deserve that they deserve for January 6th to be way fucking worse than it was. That's why they haven't taken the blockade down yet, because they know they've earned it. That's why they shot that woman trying to kick the window in, because they fucking know they deserve it. They know that
if you're saying that we're so convincingly pacified, though, then why do they know they deserve it? If they've convincingly pacified the populace, right? Why is it that they're always scared?
Afraid? Listen, the bully is always afraid that someday someone's going to hit him back because he knows he deserves it. It doesn't mean that he's going to behave differently. That doesn't shape his behavior. But the fear of retaliation is always in the back of the mind. That's what paranoia is. That's why every emperor throughout history has executed people at the slightest hint of rebellion, right? Because they know that it's coming. They know that they've earned it. And so our government knows that they've earned it. You know, the difference is it wasn't delivered to them. On January 6th, a bunch of unarmed people stormed in, unorganized, with no plan of anything. What were they going to do? Shit on Nancy Pelosi's desk and take a fucking Instagram live?
What do you think about
They did that.
Right?
They did that.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
like,
so
like all right, I'm not one that says false flag very often.
yeah. I mean,
But to
I
me-
think it's interesting. I don't think it was a false flag. I don't think that. I think it was the first leaf to fall from a very full tree that has been aging for many, many years.
Yeah.
And I think it was the overflow of that emotional sentiment of what the fuck is our government doing for us? And listen, like, do you think that Wilkes Booth was the first guy to try to kill Lincoln?
No.
Probably not. The first guy probably tripped on his rifle on the way to the fucking wagon and shot his own head off, right? So we often don't hear through history about all of the failed half-assed attempts that led to the revolution, but I think this is one of the half-assed attempts that's ultimately going to lead to a revolution. And I do think it's going to take a more brazen overreach from government for the one I'm talking about to happen, and it's going to be when they take your guns. When they come and take the guns, that's when the shit's going to... Or my other prediction is that when the government decides that there are going to be no more stimulus in September, and instead they give $3 trillion, $4 trillion to the financial industry to bail them out again, that will be when the country unites to overthrow the government.
I don't disagree with that, right? But I hope to God that that's not the case. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. I hope that we can do this somehow civilly.
I have a question.
I think we all agree with you. I just don't think that's realistic at this point because,
Question, boys.
they've
Do
become
we all
more
here think that January 6th was really an insurrection?
No, I don't think so personally.
No, an insurrection.
Was a
I mean,
fucking
I guess
flash mob.
definitionally, I think you could call it that. But I don't think when you think insurrection, I don't think that's what you're thinking. Like,
ask Tiananmen Square what an insurrection looks
Okay,
like.
thank you.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
it was
wanted to make
it was a
that
bunch of
nobody
angry people.
actually thinks that was a fucking insurrection, because it wasn't.
All right. The only reason I even bring up the idea of a false flag with regards to that is because of what you said earlier. Cui bono. I don't think anyone's benefited from January 6th other than the government.
Of
I mean,
course.
really.
Of course.
The media, maybe, you know, their own little half-ass way. But if I may, Mike, you say you believe that it will happen when they attempt to take the guns, and I'm going to take the position that I've always taken on this. With America owning 44% of global guns, period, fucking not including the military, not including police. If you think Afghanistan was a hard fucking target, this is not going to go well for anyone that attempts it.
No. Well, and this is the thing is you don't realize that to me is what will motivate. And by the way, I don't know, Mike, did you say you're a veteran?
Yeah, me and Joe.
So well, first of all, thank you both for your service.
Appreciate your support. Thank you.
And the other thing I will tell you, though, is because you guys know the violence and the perils of war, and I would throw Tulsi Gabbard into the mix on this, is like, you know that is a cost that you don't want to have to pay on American soil. However, there will come a point where you will go, this is what I signed up for. And when it pushes the veterans to the point of going, now we are beyond the point where we can no longer afford not to pay the price of war and bloodshed on our soil to protect what we believe our country means, then I think that we'll get to that breaking point. But I think, again, it's, keep them fed well enough not to rise up. I think the government is very aware of the certain things they have to avoid forcing down the citizens' throats to keep people like yourselves from taking action, right?
Me and Mike were actually talking about this the other night, and we were talking about, you want to know if anything
what the global war on terror has produced. It has produced 2 decades worth of the most savage fucking veterans ever.
Right.
It just has. It's not going to go well for anyone who wants to try that one.
No one gives a fuck about U.S. veterans in the last 30 fucking years. Not really.
No.
And but we've been in the background for the last 30 years. The government's been producing us for the last 30 years in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so like we're not the fucking World War II generation
No.
that went to war for, a few fucking years, right? And got
but also
fucking nails.
But I would
and
also
got
say
taken care of.
Conflict in the Middle East, I think, has been far more barbaric, violent, and horrific than even what it was experienced in World War II, simply from the nature of like the way that those incursions and stuff have been fought. A lot of it is like a lot of it on foot, a lot of it like there were no fighter jet kamikaze shit happening in the Middle East. So it's I think, to your point, it's like when the war has been, I would say that the all of the conflicts in the Middle East, maybe this is the wrong word, but I can't think of a better one, have been more, it's been more intimate combat, more like face to face than I think it was in World War II. I do think that the veterans, just by nature of having parents and relatives who were veterans of Vietnam and World War II, they're not as hardened by those conflicts as my friends who went to Iraq, Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Saudi
like the
Arabia.
fucking the roads in Bastogne weren't fucking exploding every 5 minutes.
Right.
It's real shit. And I'm not taking
Well,
anything away from any veteran who's been in any campaign. Like, I hate the fact that they all had to go and do what they had to do, but I thank them for it. But I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't want to fight a Vietnam veteran. That guy, he fucking fights dirty.
Also, let me add something here that I think is interesting.
Also the fact that and you guys saw this more up front than I did, obviously. But does the fact that it's a religious war, do you think, sort of like make it that much more violent, that much more, that much more deadly, in the sense of like, from their perspective, this is a war on their religion, a war on their beliefs. And so I think in their
religion, if they kill themselves, it's considered, a gift to Allah, which is
right. Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't in World War II, thank God. But I do think that whenever you have there's an idealistic motivation behind you yourself putting yourself, up, you're putting your own body on the line for this idea. That's hard to you can't combat that, not effectively anyway.
Yeah.
Hearts and minds, fuck that. One in the heart, one in the mind. That's the only way you can combat that. That's the sad reality of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, and that's why I think we are at this crossroads in our country now, is because it has become ideological, right? It has become the preservation of what we were taught America is versus a reformation attempt, an attempt to remake America in a completely new image. And some people label that as socialism or communism even. I think it's more of the image that we're being shaped in now. I would consider more of an authoritarian corporatocracy. I talk with lawyers and stuff about this all the time, but it's like, I love this concept, this freedom of choice doesn't come without freedom of consequence. And it's like, well, if there's the threat of consequences for exercising your freedoms, are they truly freedoms in the first place? So when we say that like freedom of choice doesn't come without freedom of consequence, well, if we remove that right simply by saying that the consequences will far outweigh the benefits of exercising your freedoms, it no longer is a freedom. And that is the world we are. It's almost like we're creating a country that lives on the fine print. Does that make sense?
But who's creating that country, right? Like, it's not the people, generally. The people are being led into that, maybe. But, like, the people, it's the elite. It's the New York Times reporters that are creating that country. And you know what? People in their own way are fucking rebelling against that.
Well, it's academia. It's big media. It's it's essentially it's a bunch of fucking nerds that found their way to they now sit in the chair like the great and powerful Oz, and they pull the levers and they make the smoke go, and they scare everybody into submission.
Jordan Peterson had maybe one of the best-selling books of the last decade, maybe. And as someone who's read 12 Rules for Life, that book was garbage. It wasn't even good. Like, people were just fucking buying it because Jordan Peterson was telling people what they knew was fucking true. He was the first person to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you bring up an interesting point. We had this conversation at my house last night where we talked about the fact that, like, when you look at just the interpersonal discipline of people that grow up in military families versus people that don't, I mean, that right there is a deciding factor between essentially how someone is as a person. Or if somebody grows up very religiously strict or conservative, I mean, that affects their human discipline. And so it's all about sort of your biological and your intellectual conditioning. And so when you say, how have we found ourselves in this place we are today? It's from decades of conditioning, and it's conditioning coming from everywhere. Academia, you talk about the fact that, like, when we were kids, we had respect for teachers. We viewed them as, we viewed them as some sort of authority figure in our lives. And I don't know if that exists anymore. But ultimately they are abusing that power and influencing your children to believe things that, for instance, I remember teachers getting reprimanded when I was a kid for sharing any of their personal views that were of a religious or philosophical nature with the class, because the administration of the school recognized that was infringing on a parent's right to raise their children the way they wanted to. And now it's almost as if they now supersede what you learn at home. You go to school and they will literally try to re-engineer whatever your parents teach you into the image of what they think right is. And so, and I think some of the problem with that is the fucking horseshit teacher worship that we have in this country. The fact that we've unionized and protected teachers from being held accountable for shitty performance for 30 fucking years. And now they're so emboldened, they believe they are the shapers and makers of our society. Same with Hollywood. You listen to these Hollywood people. How many Spielbergs are there anymore who are like, I just want to make great movies that entertain people? Every single fucking celebrity and filmmaker is like, I have a responsibility with my platform to lay the roadmap of what humanity is supposed to be. What a disgusting sense of self-importance. But there isn't a fucking filmmaker at the Oscars that doesn't believe that that's the responsibility bestowed upon them. They think it's their job to tell society how to be in everything that they do. And so,
I mean, that's not new though.
No, but
I mean, that's all of original Hollywood.
But it's being rewarded at a greater rate. And now those same entities that have kind of always pushed that agenda are now making it prohibitive to make anything that is rebellious of that. Like, you can't make a movie in Hollywood that's for consideration for awards unless you have a certain racial, gender makeup of the production, not even the people on screen, but even the production. So,
can I just say that this isn't the first time in American history that this has happened? And you know what? It's not violence that solved that problem. And it's not elites that solved that problem. It's fucking hippies solved that problem before. In the 1960s, I mean, yeah, we got stuck with intersectional politics and a whole bunch of other garbage from the 60s. But the 1950s cinematic universe of Beaver Cleaver and Apple Pie ended because people realized that wasn't fucking normal life.
But don't you think that we still had a semblance of commerce dictating policy? Like, I think capitalism ultimately ruled. The funny thing about the hippies that you bring up is that was at a time where capitalism could still drive narrative. Capitalism could still fight against the wishes of those. Now we live in a world where, these people actually believe they can change, they can override capitalism. And that's the major difference, right? Companies pivoted to the sort of hippie movement, right? The like to buy the world of Coke advertising pivoted into this idea of global togetherness and, peace and love and everything else. Now you have Johnson & Johnson creating ads that tell you that if you don't believe Black Lives Matter, then they don't want your business and they think you're a piece of shit. I mean, it's amazing to me how the idea of voting with your wallet is a great example. Gina Carano got fired far before Disney had an opportunity to determine whether or not her statements had any financial impact on their business. So they don't
70
believe it.
million people voted for Donald Trump.
They don't believe,
70
but they don't believe they don't believe there are capitalistic consequences to their political choices. That's the problem.
I do agree with that, but there are. Look, man, in America's fucking DNA, there's this outlaw fucking punk rock sense of fuck you, right?
Mhm.
There's a fuck you is in our DNA, right? Johnny Cash is in our DNA. Muhammad Ali is in our DNA. It's part of what America fucking is. And to think that there's not going to be some kind of capitalistic fucking blowback from this horse shit fucking agenda is just nonsense, because there will be. It maybe not yet, right? But we're fucking getting there.
But part of the problem is now we live in a place where valuation determines value and not actual sales, right? So like this is the problem with big tech. Big tech doesn't even have to be profitable to be valuable. Look at things like Uber. Look at things like, so when we live in a venture capital society where people voting with their wallets ultimately might not affect the viability of a company's success. I mean, Netflix hasn't made a profit yet, right? And they lose money every year. And it's like they continue to have capital to raise money, to find a way to survive without actually sustaining profitable growth. So these companies have been conditioned to understand that, like, we don't even need to make money to be successful, to be rich, to do things the way we want to do them. Like, the government can protect us from the financial consequences. I mean, what was the bailouts? Protecting them from the financial consequences of bad business. So Disney firing Gina Carano might have been bad business, but they'll be protected from that. If Disney were to start going under because the 75 million Trump voters canceled their Disney Plus, the government would just bail them out.
You're right, but how long is that sustainable?
Until people get pissed and take machine guns to DC. It's like, this is ultimately what will have to happen, because they're all going to protect each other.
We're having a Maoist revolution right now undercover. Like, I mean, so economics mean nothing? Like, for real? Like, you know, there's some sense to this kind of, what is it? The economic classical, and what's the economic theory that's like money means nothing, it's all monopoly money? What am I thinking of? Damn it. So basically what you're saying is that there is no real classical.
Yeah, are you talking about neutrality? Are you talking about neutrality?
No, I'm not, but it's okay. It doesn't matter what I'm talking about. I can make the point without knowing the word. So if that's the case, right? Like, if there's just all these investment dollars that are free, right? Then inflation won't come to bear. I mean, there are some market restrictions on that kind of fucking nonsense. You know, if you just keep feeding capital to people that aren't generating capital, eventually you'll run out of fucking money, and the value of the dollar will drop. Right? And poverty will ensue, and violence will ensue from that. Right? I just don't think that's a sustainable thing.
Well, but what have we thrown at COVID? We just print more money and give it to people.
You're right. Sure. But is your point that we can just keep modern monetary theory? That's what I was trying to come up with. That we can just keep printing money with no negative consequence? Is that your point?
Well, I mean, I think their behavior I don't believe that, but I think their behavior indicates that they believe that. You know, the problem is people are becoming more hip to where that, as we print that money, it's not going to where it's supposed to go. And right. So, you know, like the fact that we had what was the number that was going around, $700 million dedicated to gender studies in Pakistan. I mean, the fact that we didn't roll tanks into DC on that principle alone tells you how willing we are to let the boot be shoved down our necks. The fact that everyone in this country isn't a fucking millionaire before we spend money overseas on shit like that is disgusting. And every American citizen should be disgusted by it. But do you know why they're not? Well, I mean, I got it pretty good. My kids go to a good school. I make enough money to survive. It's just not life and death for most American citizens, so they don't care. But I'll tell you where it's getting more life and death for people that can't make ends meet. And the more of those people that exist in the country, the better off we'll be. Listen, why do I think New York and Los Angeles locked down? Here's a little conspiratorial thinking for you. Is it beneficial to get all the poor people out of those cities who really can't afford to live there? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because eventually, if all of those poor people get to a degree where they can't survive anymore, you'll see Lady Gaga won't be the only bitch getting her dogs taken at gunpoint. I'll tell you that. And I predicted, like, if they don't get this thing economically fixed in these two states, in New York and California, that you're going to see all kinds of crazy celebrity home invasions, kidnappings, things like that from desperate people that are just tired of feeling like they've got the boot on their neck. And, when they started seeing this mass economic migration, in a way, that was America fixing their problem for them and going, well, if I can't afford to live here, I'll go somewhere else. Well, basically, you're just redistributing wealth around the country. So now you got this really poor middle part, and you got these very wealthy elite walls on each side of the country that are basically now protected because all of the poor people left on their own accord. Or were they forced to because their governors just said, fuck you, good luck making ends meet without a job to go to. So
I guess you're right, but at the same time, that has consequences. Like, I just don't see. So we've seen 50 years of progressive patience, right? Of patience within progressivism to bring us to some kind of modern liberal kind of fucking globalist agenda. I would say that that's a fair, the political centrism and globalism are kind of what progressivism has been pushing us towards for a long time, right?
And you would say with the consequences of that kind of stuff would be that there aren't low-class workers to do the jobs that those people then rely on for their own survival. But then I would give you the Andrew Yang argument of automation solves a lot of those problems. And so now when you have here's a perfect example. Do you think grocery stores will exist in cities like Los Angeles and New York in 3 years? They won't exist. Grocery stores altogether will go away, and everyone's groceries will be delivered by Amazon on their doorstep for whatever they need. This is a drill and conditioning for a future of automation.
Have you ever gotten your groceries delivered?
Always, all the time.
Oh my God, it's so great, right?
Can we just
stop for a second and appreciate how capitalism, how our fucking overseers are fucking treating us right now? Like, I really do like getting my shit delivered to my house.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm spelling out for you. Go, well, aren't there going to be consequences to this redistribution of wealth? No, because the technology has made it doable. Right? You can get rid of fast food workers. You can just have everything delivered through cloud kitchens. You don't need brick and mortar stores anymore. How long before Starbucks goes away? You don't need Starbucks on your way to work. Your work's at your home. You don't have to go to an office. You don't have an office anymore. Make your coffee at home. They'll deliver that too. I mean, we're entering a technologically forward level of society where you don't need a low class or a middle class. A fucking robot starts picking up your garbage. Look out. You can have a city that's entirely wealthy. You can have Elysium. I mean, people that movie didn't do well, but you can have that in a world with automation.
With the poor, though? Do we kick them out? Do we kill them?
We just did. We are killing them. We are kicking them out.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you're kicking them out of the city centers, right? Well, the middle of the country isn't going to stand for that nonsense forever.
But that's where they want them. They don't listen. The elite don't want all of America. They just want the best parts.
So what you're saying is that they realize that they're sowing the seeds of their own destruction and they don't care?
It's not about their destruction. They're creating Elysium. They're creating an island for the wealthy, the rich, the privileged and the powerful.
Well,
Hey guys, real quick. I'm on the fire department. I have to go. Josh, it was really good talking to you. I'll talk to you guys soon, okay? All right, guys.
we're at
Stay
about an
safe out
hour
there.
4. I love this conversation.
That's good.
The idea that there is a globalist agenda to create a paradise on the coast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it, man. I don't see it, because long before that happens, there'll be an uprising, a violent uprising. Long before that happens.
I hope you're right, but it might not. I mean, look,
they'd have to take our guns to make that a possibility.
Well, this is a trial run, though. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, is when people were told that they couldn't afford their homes anymore, did they fight for them or did they move? They moved.
Right.
So they don't need a violent war. Nobody can. This is the problem with our generation not owning land. We don't own any land. Steve Bannon talks about this all the time, and he's right. The biggest problem with this generation is that it has no real equity. It doesn't own anything. Yeah. We don't own homes. We don't own land. Everything we own is in the cloud, essentially. We have no real physical, tangible equity in our personhood. And so when you look at that and you go, yeah, you can't afford to live here anymore, and people go, fuck you, take it from me. They don't do that. They go, all right, I guess Dallas, Austin, Nashville, where can I afford to live? And they leave. Yeah. They just go on their own. They tuck their heads down and then they just leave. So, it's so interesting. And I keep saying the word Elysium. I don't know if you're familiar with the film, but go back and watch it and tell me that America is not just going to be one giant Mexico and they're going to live in space.
I'd rather live in Mexico, dog.
But it's not, but I'm saying it's not space. It'll be Los Angeles and New York. Right. These will be the place, San Francisco.
I'm okay with that. To an extent, I'm okay with having real freedom on the interior. If they want to have their little fucking bougie ass fucking Maoist society on the fucking coast, I'm cool. As long as they leave me the fuck alone.
But they won't.
So I'll just point out, you just made the case for me that's why it will never change, because people like you are fine with it.
See?
Yeah, I would rather not live on the fucking coast if that's what I have to deal with.
You should be able to live wherever the fuck you want in this country.
Well, it's a fucking republic.
The Constitution shouldn't be conditionally applied by state.
But here's my thing with
why don't I get to go to the beach, man?
Well, actually, the Constitution is conditionally applied by the state to an extent. Like, there's so much states' rights. Like, the federal government has so very little power constitutionally, right? Like, the states can do basically what they want to do. I mean,
can they?
I mean, yeah, constitutionally for the most part, yeah. There's the Bill of Rights to contend with, but I think that, common law over the last 200 years has effectively fucked that up. So, yeah.
Yeah, you asked the philosophical question of, how have they done it? How have they gotten this power? And it's because when push comes to shove, you go, I don't need to live on the coasts. I don't need this freedom. I don't need that freedom. That freedom doesn't affect me. It's the same reason why, when a guy like me gets fired from a job because of a tweet, people go, well, freedom of speech has freedom of consequences. Well, that's because you're okay with that, because freedom of speech isn't important to you. You don't have anything to say. So you don't give a fuck about that right? Those people are plugged into the matrix. They go to their job. They make their money. They keep their head down. They don't have anything of importance to express. They don't have anything that they care to say. They don't have anything to add to the conversation. So that's not a right that matters to them. That's why they're all like, well, freedom of speech has consequences. Fuck you. If you don't like it, don't say it. Well, that might be how you live your life. That's not how I want to live mine.
Amen.
Well, I mean, also, I think that if you're representing a company, speech does have consequences.
Oh, get the fuck out of here with that. How? So to what? Hold on. To what degree? To what degree do you stop
my
being?
point here?
No. To what degree do you stop being a representative of the place you work? Are you representing your company when you're sitting at home taking a shit?
No, I agree with you there, 100%. What I'm saying is, if I'm at a Walmart and I say "fuck you" to a customer and I'm an employee, but that should have consequences, right?
Of course, but that's outlined in a company's policy. That's not what we're dealing with. We're not talking about workplace conduct not being allowed to have consequences.
I was outlining what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's the same reason you're not allowed to fuck a stranger in the workplace, because you're at work and they govern what you're allowed to do in the workplace. I'm talking about shit you do at home affecting your employment status. That's the world we live in today.
Which was going to be my point.
Right. So me tweeting something,
I was just trying to outline a point, and I hit a nerve.
Yeah, Well, I just put a whole thread about this that happened 2 years ago as a subsequent fallout from the 2018 thing. In 19, I got hired by a company, 150 grand a year. They created a position for me. They knew I was a comedian when they hired me. Nobody had a problem with it. And on day 2, not related to any workplace conduct, day 2 on the job, I got fired because a girl that worked there was offended by tweets I put out as a comedian. What the fuck does one have to do with another?
That's some dumb shit.
What does one have to do with another?
And nothing. Nothing is the answer, and that shouldn't happen.
Right,
and
but
that
it does, and it will, and it's going to keep happening.
Unless we stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's my thing with that. What do you do to stop it? Like, I see violent overthrow. Like, I get that. That's an answer, and I think it might maybe end up being the right one.
Well, I guess my point is this. When we all saw that gruesome double murder of the snow shoveling people, nobody tweeted, "Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences."
You're right. How about this? How about
screaming at that woman as he shot her execution style in the head? You should have kept your fucking mouth shut. And nobody agreed with that guy publicly.
Well, now I want to go on that video and make that comment, because I think it'd be really funny. Right. Anyway,
if Twitter didn't take that video down, by the way, that was the tweet I had queued up to go with that video. Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, right?
That's a great take, right? Let me, I think this is really important, and what I want to say is this. We have the internet. I mean, maybe not forever, but for now, we have the internet and we have our platforms, respectively.
Yeah.
What I think is a good thing to do is maybe, if we see something like that happen, like if we see someone like you get fired, apply pressure to that organization that fires you. I mean, because the left, they'll fucking apply pressure. But if anything, we learned, when Donald Trump almost got reelected, we learned that there's a lot of us too. There's a lot of people in this country that care about free speech.
Yeah.
We just need to be more loud about it. We need to go on our platforms.
I agree, and more organized.
Yeah, more organized. We need to, what we need to do is take a page out of Antifa's book. We need to stop,
Well, they're definitely better organized, that's for sure.
If I may, when it comes to free speech, we have to realize a few things. That protects you from government. What we need to do is look at Section 230, which has been a long-going argument. We know what's going on there. My question is, I'm not a politician, and I look into certain things, and I don't have all the answers, but why are we the only country to never re-ratify Article 19 of the UDHR, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which would then extend into any platform, any media, for anything that you deem worthy of you saying, it's protected. And this is what I've been asking for the last year, and no one wants to deal with it. They just kind of brush it under the rug. It's all good to think that we're going to have a platform and that the internet may live forever and we can just go on and blast these places. But looking at the last year and how quickly they have dismantled our right to having an opinion, I don't see it lasting that long. I do think out of both sides, whether it's dismantling media, rebooting education, taking government and, limiting them, if we don't do that, it's going to come to a war. But what we need to do in the meantime is find the individuals who are willing to put in the effort and the work and the bravery to actually stand for what they believe in, or we aren't going to have much time. That's where I fall with it. I see, fine, 5 to 10 years, sure, we might see a war on our soil, which God forbid, I don't want to see that. But where you're looking at, Mike, you think that there's like this easier way where we can just take to Twitter or these other platforms and be like, oh, we're pissed off. That is not enough. I'm telling you now, just from my purview, that is not enough.
Well, and the
Just
problem
by the
I
way,
have,
that's
you
not
bring
my
up,
position.
You bring up a really good point too, and the thing that bothered me the most about January 6th is every politician's reaction of like, we need to hold people accountable, for their participation in this. Well, where is the acceptance of accountability for that being the way people feel about our government? Where was the politician stepping up and going, we need to take responsibility for the fact that we played a part in it getting to this point? Regardless of whether or not we think that's fair.
Do you listen to part of the problem?
If perception is the rule and the perception is that government is out to fuck the American citizens, then take responsibility and fix that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I was going to ask you, do you listen to part of the problem?
No, I don't. I think I've watched some clips, but I don't.
Okay, so there's an interesting perspective about this. And so this guy asked his veteran friends, right? When you go to another country and you see a Capitol building that's surrounded by soldiers and fences, what does that tell you? And the guy said, it tells me that it's an illegitimate government.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, yeah, dude, like, I don't think this government necessarily represents the people anymore.
They don't.
No.
And that's why Nancy Pelosi is seeking to have a retractable gate installed in the next year, because they know that the people are now seeing we're not the only part of the problem. It's fine to say that we're doing shit wrong, but when do y'all take culpability and responsibility in this? You brought us to this fucking point. There's many like me who wake up, we do what we got to do, we honor the Constitution, we like working, we like God, we like the simplest things in life, and we'll work like fucking assholes for it. But when you have government you got a drunk lead in the House, you got a guy who doesn't know where the fuck he's at as president. I mean, come on, that's an illegitimate government. You're going to need a retractable fence. And then you see January 6th pop up, and you want to blame it on actual patriotic Americans, which we can debunk on paper. I mean, the people are pissed no matter which side you look at. And one of the other things I find interesting, everyone looks at Antifa and they automatically say, oh, they're against, us and this. No, they're after Joe Biden just as much as fucking we are. They don't like him just as much as we don't. They're mad at the whole establishment. And that is one facet in which I can say I agree with them. We have been failed. We have been lied to. We've been used. And we have given them the means to take everything that they want at $174 fucking $1,000 a year. It's all wrong.
That's the thing, though, right? Like, the leftists and the libertarians are both not being served by this government. Like, there's no fucking group of people in America that are saying, you know what we want? Elysium, and we want to be on the other side of the fence. You know what I mean? Like, there's no group of fucking people that are like, we want to live in fucking Mexico and do all the fucking work for these assholes and have no fucking hope of ever fucking making it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that isn't the case. And there's more of us than there are of them. And that's why I think it's a mistake to think that they're the powerful and we're the powerless. There's more of us.
They're powerful now because they exude fear. They have control where they want our school systems, our medicine, big pharma, big tech. They got us in a stronghold. But the very second we realize that we have the power to change that and put our beliefs back into it via our hard work and everything else we've grown up with, then we can change it. But when we're sitting on the couch saying, Amazon, bring me my bananas, and we want to televisit with a doctor, and we want to fucking sit back and say, oh, I'm cool with you not saying that as long as it don't hurt my feelings. Well, guess what? Then you're going to keep seeing today, tomorrow, yesterday, and the fucking first 15 days, which are now 365 later. We're going to keep seeing this bullshit, boys.
You're right. I think my position, by the way, you said it was, let's sit back on Twitter and comment on things. It's not my position. My position is what you're doing, going and talking to your mayor. What I want to do, which is get on city council here.
Fucking right.
Is taking people that have taken the time to self-educate on government and politics and know what the problems are that they have locally that they can solve, and get them on board and realize there's more of us than there are of them, and that politically that matters. We do have political power because we have political majorities. And the problem isn't that social media, isn't the fucking media. It's our inaction. It's our inability to organize as a group and say, nah, enough is enough of this bullshit.
Well, the ideology is kind of part of the problem. And when you think about it, like we have this idea of people being individuals in that group. So by nature of that, we don't do well grouping together and organizing. So in a way, it's like having they win because their ideology is to lump people in groups and outnumber the opposition. And our philosophy is to let people remain individuals and to let, freedom rule the day. And that is not good for organizing change. That's
why I think your ideology is important. I mean, you're a constitutional minarchist, right? Like, you're not an anarchist. You believe that the country should have a limited federal government.
Yeah, right? If it were up to me, I would say that we no longer need a president, and I think we should have non-elected congressional seats, meaning I think Congress should be seated like jurors. You should be chosen at random. And I think you should be chosen at random. You should have to serve a year or two, and then on to the next group. And then I think if you want to remain in government, then you can run for Senate or you can become the governor of your state. But I think we have to get away from this. The president actually protects an ineffective government because the president takes all the credit and all the blame. And so the reason that we let ineffective congressmen and women, senators, House of Representatives, the reason we let these people go for so long is because the president takes all of the shade. He takes all of the glory and all of the shame for a government that either works for the people or doesn't work for the people. And, Americans are kind of waking up to that of like, oh, wow, the president doesn't actually fucking do anything.
He doesn't have that much power if you look at like how the government aligns.
No, I mean executive order, executive schmorder. Those are all temporary fixes, right? It's not.
Yeah, it's hard to call. It's hard to call Donald Trump an ignorant political novice and a tyrant, and not have any cognitive dissonance there.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of why this government continues to prevail the way that it does. And if we eliminated the figurehead of the presidency, people would be far more interested in who's my senator, who's my governor. My governor affects everything in my state. My senator affects everything my state has influence on in the country. And your representatives are more localized, but they're elected at random, and unwilling participants are much harder to bribe, much harder to get to go along. And if you limited them to singular terms, in the House, ultimately, there would be no way to lobby those people and again, put them into groups and drive some sort of consensus against just the flat out will of their constituents. So, we're talking about a restructuring of government, almost more of it's probably more similar to a parliamentary system than, I would say a true monarchy, in the sense we would no longer have a figurehead. But ultimately, if we're going to remain, in my eyes, a constitutional republic, we should have a representative federal government, and we should be far more localized on the state government level. Your governor should be your president. And we haven't treated that position that way for a long time. But I think we learned through COVID, your governor has more of a say over what happens in your state than the president does.
I think right now is a great time to seize on that. Right? You know what people don't like is giving up power and authority.
Yeah, but do you think if we all agree that we shouldn't have presidents anymore and Joe Biden dies, you think Kamala Harris is going to be the person to go, I won't be president? Fuck that.
Yeah, no, but
she'll
here's the thing.
Moonwalk into that office.
Look, here's the reason why our Constitution exists. First of all, that was hilarious. All right. I want to give you props for that because that was really fucking funny.
I'm not gonna not be the first female president and a black woman too.
But,
come on,
hey,
y'all can kill it after me.
Let me real quick say, sorry, he's being really funny and I'm trying to hold what I'm trying to think in my head. So here's the thing, like, we do have a constitution, and our constitution does give states a lot of fucking power, right? And right now, the states have a lot of fucking power, and what they don't want to do is loose their fucking hold on all that fucking power that they have, right? And so maybe right now, supporting your state government and throwing support their way and saying, hey, you don't have to listen to this fucking cocksucker, maybe that's a good move in the direction of more state power, is to say, hey, look, we have checks and balances in this country that are given to us by a constitution, and we live in a republic, and that's it. The Constitution is a contract amongst the states, and the states are really the center of authority in the country. And maybe if we didn't listen so much to DC and we didn't take so much of their fucking money to fund our schools and to fund our fucking welfare programs and to fund our disability programs and all that other garbage, maybe we didn't take so much of that, they wouldn't have so much control over us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's big government's agenda, right? They get to keep you on the teat.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
Keep
And that isn't just at the individual level. That's at every level of government. The federal government is keeping you on the teat.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Right.
I really love the word teat. It's just inherently funny. So,
Yeah,
hey,
man.
I think it's about time to get off here. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's been good, man.
Yeah,
this is
I would
awesome.
love to have you on again. Like, you're super challenging to me intellectually, and that's fun.
It's always it's necessary. It's not.
Yeah.
And listen, the only way to find out if your ideas are any good is to test them against other smart people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
if they're not, then they won't hold up.
well, that's good shit, man. And I appreciate you being that smart person for me to test my ideas again.
Likewise.
Yeah. So, I think that about wraps up. Does anyone have anything else to add? Do you
I
want
just
to
want to say thank
out
you. I just want to say thank you, Josh, and Mike and Joe, and hopefully, Joe gets back safely. But thank you for taking the time, honestly, because I really wanted to see where you fell on a lot of things, especially just breezing over some of your tweets. And like Mike said, I would love to have you back for further conversation on various things, just to see where we align, maybe where we don't. Because if we don't have these conversations, we can't really fix what's going on, and we can't make tomorrow better. So I'm all for it. But thank you.
I also think it's good to have these conversations so you don't feel like you're a lunatic sitting at home alone and you're like, I'm the only person that thinks this shit.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, agreed.
So it's important to go. Listen, am I a fucking lunatic, or do other people see this the way I see it? I think it's healthy to socialize some of your ideas, even if you feel like they're a little radical. And listen, to put the disclaimer out there, it's like, I'm not rooting for any of these horrific, militant actions. I just think it's inevitable. I think we've crossed the point of inevitability. And I think, we're kind of, past the point of no return, unfortunately, with getting things done in a legislative and nice way. So, I've never wanted to be wrong about anything I've ever said more than I want to be wrong about this. And I hope you're right. I hope it doesn't come to that. I just don't think it will.
Hopefully, as a generation and hopefully as a people, we can prove you wrong on that.
Yeah, I hope so. But if I got to tell you, if I'm putting money down, I'm betting on me.
Oh yeah, me too, for sure. I just hate it as an idea.
It's horrible. It's a horrible thought, but
horrible, terrible idea.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Coming from someone who has seen what that looks like up close, it's terrible.
Well, I think we'll inevitably end up there because not enough people have seen it up close like you have seen it. And it's unfortunate to have to think of it that way, but I think it is. I think the reality is that not enough people have experienced what you've experienced, and therefore that's what will unfortunately slip us into that territory, is that nobody, that's what I love about Tulsi Gabbard, is she seems to govern from a place of like, this is where we're going if we don't get it right, guys. And nobody wants to listen to her. They want to call her a Russian conspiracy.
Fucking Corella DeVille on SNL.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous the way that they paint her as somebody who's like, listen, as someone who's been in the gruesome reality of combat, let's not bring this to our own country by refusing to listen to each other. And everyone's literally going back at her like, get out of here, you Russian Nazi. So, it's like she's sort of like I think one of the canaries in the coal mine of saying like, this is where we're headed. And and nobody wants to take her seriously. So
I gave Tulsi money. Like
me too. It's the only political campaign I've ever given money towards is Tulsi Gabbard's.
Me too. Honestly, yeah. I haven't thought about it, but yeah, that's the only political campaign I've ever given money to.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot, but it was what I could give, and I would do it again. If she runs again, I think she's going to have to switch parties or run independent, to be honest. But, I think she's the most presidential person that ran the last cycle. I think she's the only person in the public space that has the right mindset outlook to actually govern this country in any sort of effective way. I just don't think that's how we're going to elect presidents anymore. I think we're going to get more ridiculous. Like, if this is the thing I always tell people, if you thought Trump was a problem, wait till you see what's coming next. Because
my hope is that generation is dying out, though. Like, really, like, that's my hope, is that this is a generational thing. And I think even COVID and our response to it is part of a generational thing that is dying out. I think the baby boomers are going to die out, and we're going to wind up maybe, hopefully with a better country as a result.
Yeah. I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Yeah, and Tulsi, that's my girl. I would love to have you on just to talk about her. Just to fucking wax poetic about Tulsi Gabbard for, an hour or so. Because, God damn it, I love 99% of what that woman was about.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, she'd be very good. She's she's on Locals now where I'm at, and she's one of their big kind of content creators. She does her podcast and everything over there, and I think it's she's a smart person and fit to lead, and it's unfortunate that we are in a society now where we don't necessarily value those types of people. We value the pomp and circumstance. We value the extreme rhetoric. We're kind of turned on by all of the, it's sort of like, if we're doing this from it's kind of hard to do in this perspective, but it's the only one that I think most people will relate to. It's like, you want everybody to like JWoww, but everyone likes Snooki. Like Snooki is like, JWoww is probably the most together, going back to the original Jersey Shore days, like she's the classiest. I know that's not saying much. She's the smartest. I know that's not saying much. She's the prettiest. I know that's not saying much. But you want everybody to be like, everyone should like JWoww, but everyone likes Snooki. And that's America, man. Donald Trump is Snooki. And people are like, this fucking guy? And they're like, yeah, but he's hilarious. Look at him. So, that's...
You know what? Fucking... He is the funniest president we've ever had.
Oh, that's not even up for debate. It's not even up for debate. He's funnier than a lot of fucking comedians, that's for sure.
Yeah, Trail of Tears?
I mean...
was the funniest fucking tweet I've ever read my whole life.
Horseface, when he was calling Stormy Daniels Horseface? I mean, calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, those kinds of if somebody did that stuff on a Comedy Central roast, they'd be written about like a folk hero.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, man. Like all right. I didn't love him as a president. There's a million reasons that I could discuss. I wasn't very popular on this show, on my show, on this show. No. As a result of my dislike for Donald Trump. But God damn it, he's funny as fuck. He made me laugh more than any fucking person ever in the public eye.
Well, the other thing that people don't talk about a lot about why they trusted Donald Trump is the fact that the guy was already rich. Nobody really talks about that. But it's like, if a guy has already manipulated the system to become rich, even if you think he came by his fortune in nefarious ways, right? Then why would he want to be president then? Has to be for a reason other than enriching himself, right?
I knew Donald Trump was going to win the White House when on the first debate stage, they asked him, why did you give money to Hillary Clinton? And he said, I gave her money so that she would do favors for me. And it's why I gave money to you and you and you. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that he had lost. It's so funny you bring up that first debate or that he was going to win. I knew that she had lost the presidency. We were filming the first episode of my Food Network, first season of my Food Network show. We were in Nashville, and we had just flown in to film 3 episodes over about 10 days. And we were in the hotel lobby. I'll never forget this. We were in like a Holiday Inn Express, and we we're down in the hotel lobby getting ready to go to dinner, and she's on the screen and she's like, I didn't know about that because I was busy preparing to be president of the United States, like kind of like shuffling her shoulders and mocking him. And I looked over at the young black man behind the counter, just shaking his head at her like, fuck you, you fucking bitch. And I literally looked at my whole cast and crew and was like, she just lost the election. And they're like, what? And I go, with that smug retort, she just lost the entire election. And sure enough, I was right. And that was the moment, I think, where most of America, people who didn't even give a fuck who the president was, were like, nah, fuck that. I'll vote against her. So, you know, that's why I don't necessarily believe, I don't necessarily think that the election was on the up and up. But if you want me to believe that 85 million people voted against Donald Trump instead of for Joe Biden, I can believe that. I can believe that. You spent 4 years saying the guy was Hitler. I think enough stupid people would have pulled the trigger on the other guy. They probably in their mind, when they checked the box, they checked not Hitler. And so
I'm not going to lie. I voted for Joe Biden. You know why?
Did.
That's disgusting.
You know why? Because I thought he was going to be a fucking shit show. I thought Joe Biden was going to destroy the Democratic Party because AOC was there in the fucking wings waiting for fucking.
Well, I think she'll be, and this is the only thing to put a bow on everything we've talked about. I think the only way that we don't have to go to war is if the Democratic Party eats itself, which very well could happen. Because I do believe what's going to happen is I don't think Joe's going to be president in 2022. Joe's coming out probably by 4th of July. And then I think that AOC is the only person with the balls and the fucking ego to primary challenge her own incumbent for the presidency. And so I actually think that her and another member of the squad, probably Talib, is it Rashida?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think they will actually primary challenge Kamala Harris. And then that will open things up. Because then you will really have a centrist Democrat as the incumbent. You'll have an extreme left-wing challenger. And then I think the Democrats will split the election. I don't think she's going to fall in line. I think AOC believes that she's the most powerful person in this country, and I think she will primary challenge her own party's incumbent president. And
she's got a Donald Trump level of confidence.
Of course. And then if he runs again, or one of his kids I actually like the idea of like a Kristi Noem, Ivanka Trump ticket, where you're getting the populism of the previous administration, but you're bringing a hell of a lot more government in. I also like the idea of like a Tulsi Gabbard running with a Kristi Noem as her VP candidate. I think if Donald Trump is going to run again, he needs to announce Kristi Noem as his running mate before 2022. And just
Dan Crenshaw, Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's a winning ticket. You need a populist. Tulsi's not a populist. Kristi's a populist, but she's also a traditional Republican. Trump is a populist. You can't run two government people against the Democratic ticket. So if you're going to have And I guarantee you what's going to happen is somehow Gavin Newsom will become your vice president under Kamala Harris when Joe is gone. I think that will happen. He'll get recalled. He'll go on the bench for a little bit, and he'll end up in that presidential cabinet one way or another. I mean, this is House of Cards. We're watching House of Cards right now.
It's crazy.
So, that's my prediction. Is that is the only way we don't go to war is if, the Democratic Party eats itself in its, crip walk of success and spike end zone dance. I think that could happen. It could be a Deshaun Jackson celebrating before he crosses the goal line and fumbles it out of bounds. I think that is the way that we avoid war, is the Democrats literally dunking on themselves to the point of oblivion. So let's root for that.
Root. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. You guys were great. Love you guys. I hope to have you back on, man.
Anytime, man.
Seriously, dude. Yes. All right.
All right. See you guys.
I'm out. See ya.
All right, y'all. Thanks.
Thank you.